Hello, everyone. Sorry, we're a little late here. Had a meeting run up right to the hour. If you're out there listening to streaming, why don't you give us a call out on chat and let us know you're here. This is our first time, so we're going to be kind of noobish at this. We use a lot of Zoom where we are, and we have no idea if we'll even have one attendee. And I'm not even sure, Jefferson, if I can even tell accurately when we have attendees. But even if we don't, we're going to forge ahead and put together something that you can watch on video, and hopefully the word spreads. My name is Darwin Sonoy. I'm a solutions architect at GitLab, and we were going to do some live coding here today. You want to introduce yourself, sir?
Yep, Jefferson Jones, solutions architect, colleague here with Darwin, and I'm excited just to just to hang out, have fun, and see what we can do to help each other out. So
yeah, and I wanted to make mention of something. The world's going crazy right now. And, you know, at GitLab, we are a very inclusive company. GitLab has made public statements about that these things matter to us. And GitLab was very inclusive before any of this broke loose. And we have the whole coronavirus going on as well. Although we want to be light and focus on coding today, we just want to acknowledge that we know a lot of people's lives have been impacted and a lot of people have been hurt. And our hearts go out to you. So please don't take that today we're going to be kind of having some fun and coding that we, you know, we're ignoring what's going on. We're very well aware of that, and our hearts go out to you if you've been impacted by any of this. Absolutely. All right. So, Jefferson, I had a couple items. I guess one thing I was wondering about for you, Jefferson, is your title is solutions architect. So I'm wondering, like, what do you do all day? Do you just kind of sit around and like make, I don't know, bathroom cleaners or something, solutions? Well, what does a solutions architect do?
You know, that's interesting, right? So I think solution architect as a whole is an umbrella of various we have you know, technical evangelists, right? You could consider a solution architect. And so for me and my perspective of it, it's bottom line, it's helping customers either solution map or achieve success, right? With our product, or if I was behind another product, right, that I thought was something that could help in that situation, that's what I would recommend as well. So it's really about just finding out what the problem is the customer's having, and then doing your best to find a solution or solution map it to their desired results, right? That's how I see it. It's probably more complicated than that. I think when you look into it, like as far as the tangibles and the work that we have to do, like the requirements analysis and planning and POSBs and all that stuff, I think it definitely is more complicated than that. But at the end of the day, I think that's really what's involved. It's just helping people be better, myself included.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and so if a customer is trying to get the services of a solution architect, where does that happen, and how do they do that? How do they get engaged there?
Yeah, so for GitLab specifically, we have you can always go through the sales ring, right? But we do have you know, we're on Gitter, and we're also on the forum.gitlab.com. So you can I peruse there and try to answer questions within that forum itself. But if you didn't want to go that way, we could also do. Let me share my screen actually. If you would let me, Darwin, geez. It's disabled.
I've got all the power.
All the power.
I'm going to reboot the internet like we talked about earlier.
Okay.
You might have to do, so stand by.
No, I want to showcase the guided explorations, because I think, like, if you want to get to us, this is public. Create issues, and we will answer.
Where do I go? Last time this was easier to give you everything here. I'm just going to make you the host. Now you'll have all the power in the universe.
Oh, no, that's not a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, throw this over.
Whoa, that was a cool background.
So guided exploration. So this is actually your mind child, Darwin. You brought this to GitLab, and it's really that, and maybe I'm butchering this, but it's really that place where customers can come in and see demonstratable workflows or demonstratable tools, tips, things that apply to GitLab. And it is sort of new, I guess. So there's a lot in here that is of value and quality, but there's some that we need to work within. But taking an example, like I think you did, and maybe we can go into this today too, you did a Kaniko or Kaniko, however you want to say it, build here. And like, it's really this guided exploration of, hey, you can too, right? Like, here's all the building blocks, all the steps that you need. Take it, run with it, adopt it, customize it, whatever you want. But this is how we kind of our point of view of it. And this is probably like more of a SA individual point of view, but it's still something that carries true throughout. So I think these are important, and we're going to continue building on these and making these ready to go, off the shelf, solutions to customers' problems. And here, like, we have issue boards. So if you want to come in and there's something you don't like or something that you want to add to what we've already created, you're welcome to create an issue. And we might start, creating more issue templates around this. But create an issue, give us your feedback, your comments, or even liking, whatever it is. Add your fishing pole emoji if you need to it, right? But definitely take a look in there, because I think this is awesome. I think this is really where the rubber meets the road. And if we could spend most of our time here, I think we could solve not all, but a lot of the world's problems.
Yeah. And one of the things that that we hope that this area has that's different than your average sample code is that it's a working example. So one of the beefs I've had is, when babies are born, they get to learn how to walk, talk, and eat by watching people actually doing those activities. They don't have sample code. You don't show them a couple pictures of a mouth and then a picture of food and a fork. And no, they actually see someone actually doing those activities. So the idea here is that these are working examples. So you can see the code, see the result, and you can start making your own. They're designed to be working in situ, so you should be able to go in and look at the CI/CD pipelines and find out how it's been running. And they're designed for you to grab a copy, put it wherever you want, and then usually there's going to be some instructions about if there's anything that you can't see in this repo, because we can't give you the admin permissions to these groups, then you know how to configure those and set those up. So I should also mention it's not part of our product, and it's not part of, it's just, this is our way of kind of participating in a little bit of open source. It's like things that we do to help you, things that we get common customer asks. When we're doing demonstrations or whatever, then we can put it together here, and it's both something that we can demonstrate as well as something you can use of value afterwards.
So two things I want to mention that I thought, like, if you're going to look at anything in here, and this is, I've been perusing it as well, because all this work is being done and contributed, like, even outside of what Darwin and myself are doing. But some of the big ones is this idea of plugin extension. And I think this is huge, because I mean, it's simple, and maybe I'm just late on board, I'm obtuse and like slow to uptake, but like, we all think about Jenkins plugins, and like, the plugins are like, oh, they're open source, they're not secure, or sometimes they're not even like managed anymore, and they just go to the wayside. But I love the idea, and I think you brought it up too, Darwin, is that like Jenkins plugins are like the heritage version of what containers are today. Like, containers are those new said plugins, right? And so, they last forever, because ideally you have these portable environments that you can run with. So you've demonstrated some of that here, right? With the JMeter to JUnit, and even the FreeMarker file templating plugin. So really just taking containerized concepts and making them quote unquote plugins to be extensible through any product. So I would imagine this could be applicable to anything that you do. Not just GitLab today, but I think that's a big one. And then the other one that we hear a lot about is like monorepos. So we have a complex config monorepo example in here as well, where you can see how it works, and the pipeline that goes around it, and the build stages, all that stuff, to be able to just see and see if it's going to work for your needs. That's the big one. And the other one is, I know you're still working on this one too, and I need help. I'm always behind.
Yeah, you need to help.
I need to contribute more here, because you've done a lot of this on your own. Is this your GitLab runner auto scaling on AWS AHG with spot support? Ideally, in this realm, this bucket here, I would love this for not only AWS, but GCP, Azure, anything else, right? So it's just out of the box, oh, you need to scale, here you go, right? Like our runners do really well at that, but when it relies on its own specific capabilities of scaling rather than like what the cloud already gives you. So why not just use what the cloud already gives you, and then not have to think about it so much? And so you've really done a great job of building this out. And there's so much in here to go through and look. And like you built your own, cloud formation template, which is insane. Because no one enjoys doing that, I don't think. So yeah, there's some really awesome things in here, and it's only just started, which is really cool. And I definitely want to be a part of it, and others be a part of it, and even have a community around it where, yes, the forums are great. Like I said, we have Gitter, we have, forum.gitlab.com. I'm in there, I peruse, I try to update as much as I can, but sometimes those questions come in fast and hot, and some, it's just hard, right? Where, like you said, these demonstratable working examples that you can just grab off the shelf, that's money. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and also another way that you can engage us is we're actually part of GitLab's pre-sales. So when you are, wanting to do a trial, or you're trying to understand if GitLab is the right tool for you, you can get connected up to our pre-sales. And then at a certain point in the process, if you go into a technical evaluation process, typically an SA is engaged to start helping you unwrap, what exactly you need to do. We also do demonstrations for folks that are like, well, I know GitLab is a source code repo, but boy, when I go to this website, it looks like it does a whole lot more. Well, to answer that, what is the whole lot more question? That's another time you can engage with pre-sales, and we can walk you through and try to understand. The way it differs from some of the videos on the website is we try to understand your specific concerns and work those in and address those as part of the demonstration, as well as have your Q&A during that demonstration.
Yeah, I think that's I would never want anyone to go it alone, I guess. It's already complicated enough with all the various integrations that you have out there in the DevOps world. But now you have a single application, right? A whole tool chain in one app. And it's not complicated, but we've definitely simplified it and made it easy. But at the same time, I want to be engaged. I don't want to be just twiddling my thumb, just trying to figure stuff out. So definitely.
So look at this, man. Look what I got in my backpack.
Oh, nice. Here, want to stop sharing.
Cool. Eh?
There you go. See, I needed.
Got a cool guy.
I need to do that. I'm just in my data center.
I do have one question for you though. Like, what is this thing? It looks like a small child dressed up as a cat with a lot of legs. I don't know.
So
it's frightening to small children.
So my son loves it, actually. So GitHub was like my jam, and maybe it's like that closet jam for people. Like, everyone uses GitLab, but it's still a closet GitHub user. I don't know, because I don't think you can get away with it, But I definitely have shirts with that image, and my son loves it. Even though, yes, it is like an Octocat thing. I don't.
You call it Catopus.
Catopus, okay, Catopus works. But no, it is interesting. And then we have the Elvis. I see. So you're representing Vegas there for me. So
what's that?
Are you representing Vegas there for me?
Right. You're in Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's right. That was a specific.
You should go downtown dressed like this. You should get yourself a Tanuki mask and go as Tanuki.
True story. If you go down on the strip, maybe not now because pandemic and riots that are going on, but if you go down there on a normal calm season.
Wait. There's a calm season in Vegas? I think we need to more about that. I've never heard.
Yeah. Well, I guess now it's like the calm season. Yeah. Come the fall, that's when it's nice for sure, because summer's hot. But so there is a Elvis and impersonator on one of those like wheel hover rounds, like the carts, and he literally will like follow people, and particularly like women, which is strange, but he'll follow them and like just be like, hey mama, and just goes. That's on the strip right there. Yeah. And it's just nonstop. Like you always see something odd. Well, you're like, what?
I'm glad that you like living in Las Vegas.
No, I don't go there. See, I'm far enough the strip that if I want to go, I can enjoy it with my wife on a date night or something. But far enough that I'm 30 minutes away. I'm nowhere near. Like the strip is really that contained place of debauchery, and I'm nowhere near it. So.
So hey, now I got to beg you to share with me, or to give me host, I guess. And I find that button for enabling sharing for everyone. When we were practicing, there was this. I clicked on something.
It was easy.
The button, let everyone share all the time.
It was easy. We made it hard.
Well, we can even do multiple participants can share simultaneously. I wonder how that'll. Well, maybe we go in here. All participants can share, and you can bump each other. There we go. All right, so I'm going to just get into some actual code because we did all this live coding. So I actually dig into what Jefferson pointed out here with some container build stuff. So one of the things that's been kind of a challenge for companies, and especially security departments, is they don't like that when you run Docker and Docker, that there's permissions that are allowed from the Docker containers into the host that are elevated. And so it's a concern that keeps coming up. And Google has done some work to create something called Kaniko or Kaniko. We can't actually figure out how we're supposed to say it. So if you know, it would be awesome if you shared with us how you're supposed to say it. And I actually Googled it for quite a while, Jefferson. I was looking around, and then I found a session by Google that was on all their cloud tools, and I scanned it to wait to hear them say it, and I could not find it in the whole thing. About a month ago, when I was
they were smart about it, right? They're like, oh, we just won't say it that way.
No, I think we just make fun of it like crazy. It'll be more fun. But anyway, so they made this framework that allows you to build a container. It's a container that builds containers without Docker and Docker privileges. So let's just dig into the GitLab CI code to take a peek at that. Actually,
here's a question. And this is a noob question, right? But I mean, I know the answer. Well, maybe I don't know the answer. So Docker and Docker is used commonly, right? And there is a lot of talk about security reasons to stay away from it and things like that. So what is Kaniko giving me that Docker and Docker isn't giving me, I guess?
So basically, instead of having to turn on the Docker and Docker service, which is where the privileges come in, you can leave that off or not even have it installed. And on a container-based build framework, you can build a container without those elevated permissions. And to some degree, it's a little bit of an unusual concern because usually runners, you can put them in very secure environments. So GitLab runners, all they need is port 443 back to the GitLab instance, wherever that is, and then return conversations allowed. And that's a very secure implementation. So it's just doing lightweight polling. You don't need any API posting into the runner. So it's already pretty secure, but security folks, it's their job to make things secure. And so if something comes up on a scanner, you have to run the scanners on your container host, they're going to see this and start to potentially take issue with it. So just going to pop down here into that particular project again. If you can't see your screen well enough, give us a shout out and we'll try to make the font bigger. But we're going to go into .gitlab-ci.yaml. So if you haven't been working with GitLab CI, that's what the file is that triggers GitLab. GitLab's CI is a declarative type format in YAML versus an imperative format. And that format, it's also what's called pipeline as code or build as code, which means your code for configuring your whole pipeline actually lives with your application code. And that has some huge benefits. So one of the benefits is any system that requires pipelines to be created separately means that it's not in with your code and you have to do something else or store other code to build your pipelines. There's one large cloud provider that's like this. In order to create pipelines, you have to create them with a different system. In GitLab, you create defined pipelines in this file, they're automatically going to happen. There's no separate definition. But the other thing is it's quite frequent that you want to experiment with changing your pipeline, but not your code. But when you create a branch and that pipeline file's right in there, build as code, guess what? You can just play around with your automation and not affect production. If you have a system like TeamCity or Jenkins where you're storing your build information in a database and it's one for all, then whenever you want to make changes, you got to copy that job, make all your changes, and then when you're ready to change production, you got to splice them back. I mean, these are all non-code things when developers are all about coding, right? So by having build as code or pipeline as code, we can branch, we can play with that. And when we got it working and we're happy, we just merge it in and our pipeline changes as well. So you really have your automation integrated. The other benefits are now we can do merge approval reviews. So if there's some people who are doing this, early adopters of GitLab in your organization, they can have second eyes on there and tell you, oh, you may not want to do that. So you have the whole code review process in front of pipelines. So those are the other benefit in GitLab ones is we default to the Docker runner, which means every job can have a different kind of build configuration because you can grab a random container. So this particular one here is pulling a container from Google. In this particular one, I had to peg to debug. Now, I have done some research, and you no longer have to peg out to the actual hash on this container. You can just peg to the latest debug. But you have to use a debug container because we're going to use the command line in order, or the CLI environment in order to process. So Kaniko, normally you just run the Kaniko container with all your parameters, but we want to run the container inside of GitLab and then tell it what to do. And so we have to use a debug to get a shell.
We want to break it so we can use it.
So inside of here, I'm just going to zoom to the middle and show you where we call Kaniko. Right here, we call it, we give it a context, just like Docker build. We give it a Docker file, just like Docker build. And we give it a list of tags and labels. Now, these are really commands. So really, there's a double dash tag in front of each tag and a label or destination instead of tag. And then there's a double dash label in front of the labels. Now, there's a little more code here than just creating the container because I wanted to kind of target some best practice about containers in general. So one of those best practices is starting to use labels to do metadata. And opencontainers.org has some definitions of what metadata they want to start seeing in all containers to make containers more reusable across the ecosystem. Also, it's typical to put a lot of your CI info in there. So if you have a container that goes sideways, you can like, what branch is this? What commit is this? Who did this to the container in prod? You can have some traceability of containers back to what made them through labels. So this is showing you one great big variable being created. The entire section is being created because we have the extension here. And then what happens is all of this becomes one big variable.
To mention too on your labels, because I think the metadata is like super useful and important. And to note, like, unfortunately, within the registry today, we're not able to visualize that metadata that's being applied. There is an open issue, and I'll go ahead and slap that in the chat too. So if there's relevance, like if we can get more clamoring behind it, we can get this thing adopted and be able to use these awesome labels, because I think it's key.
Yeah. So the
visibility.
Most container registries do not expose labels as data, but there are some that do, and I find that super useful because then you can expose standard information like this, or just randomly add whatever you want, and boom, you can see it in the container registry. For those of you who don't know, you have to actually go in and take the container and bring it down before you can examine the labeled data. So you have to replicate it, and you can't see it browsing the registry on your own. Now, the Kaniko container is really super generic, and it has the only reason the debug container has a shell, but it's just the BusyBox shell. So there's no package manager. So if you want to add a utility to it, you can't. And that includes Git. So one of the things I wanted to do was, what's my latest Git tag? And I want to put that as an image tag. Every time I run, whatever the last Git tag is anywhere in my set of tags, I'll grab that and add it on. But I have to run Git to find out that information. So this command right here is what's like saying, hey, go grab my latest tag. And so since I can't do that inside the Kaniko container, what I'm doing is in this Alpine Git container, I am doing that one command and then storing the result as a file, which I collect as an artifact. And in GitLab CI, anytime you collect an artifact in one stage, it will then one job, for every job after that in the same pipeline file, it will extract those artifacts automatically. You don't even have to tell it to. Once it's collected something in one job, it'll push it into every job. So then when I come down to my next job, we can see that I don't even have to reference artifacts, but I can trust that that file is there. And so I'm referencing it right here if I want to go get that version out of it.
And to note on this too, as you notice, we are like you've shown it too. It's that we're using Bash, right? And we're not like we probably could use Python, we probably could use Ruby, all these crazy things. But Darwin, I like you said it nicely. Like we're basing it off the parameters or primitives, so that like we don't have to worry about version, right? So there isn't. So anyone struggling with this, like, oh, we wrote with 2.7, good luck getting it to 3 or whatever. If it's Python code, it really complicates things. So this is why we're doing it this way. This may be like the long way to get there, but it's the most simplest, and it's those the primitives that we're working with. So I think that's important for reusability in this sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I got to admit, so I'm 50-50 PowerShell Bash, probably stronger on PowerShell. I like writing in PowerShell better, but I also like writing in the primitives of an operating system the most. And so if you fire up a container, like for instance, my famous go-to one is Amazon Linux 2. When you fire up that container, it doesn't even have wget in it. So it's really stripped back hard for the sake of density, but Bash is always there. So of course, Kaniko container is one of the exceptions. We don't have our full Bash. Bash is way more likely to be there than any other language. So developing a language you're comfortable with, just realize that there's value in going to primitives that ship on the OS or ship on the distro. And so I go ahead and bash away at Bash because I don't want to fuss with, like you say, oh, I'm using this framework that's not in every container or distro. Now I got to install it. And oh, well, I'm blocked from the internet. I can't get that. I can't get Ruby off of the repository, or
especially using a Mac, right? Like, Ruby versions in conflicts because you didn't set your open environment. So
so it's already hard enough to get as close to bare metal as possible. And the more layers that are added in there, I've just found over time, it's more frustrating than simply programming in something that ships on the box and coding in something that ships on the box. So there's some more stuff here that basically is building out labels and or tags that we can't do in the declarative GitLab here. So I can't run code up here. So I can't say, give me the current date and time. So there's things I can't do here. I can do assignments, but I can't do a lot of other things. And so as a principle of minimalism, everything that can be declarative was, and then anything that can't be is at the top of the code here. So we're grabbing the project title from GitLab YAML to be the build title, which is something that's an open containers thing again, so you can see it being used here. And so we're just aggregating everything into our image labels variable. Every kind of label we want to do gets aggregated into there. To grab the latest version, I provided two methods. So the one is the latest version in the Git tag, and the other one is only if this specific commit has a version. So basically, I only want the versions if the actual commit being built is tagged with that. And in that case, we don't have to use Git because GitLab is passing that to us as a built-in CI variable. And then the version label, if indeed we end up with one. So another thing too, Jefferson, is like idempotently coding. So not assuming something is or isn't there, or is or isn't the state. So one of the hallmarks of infrastructure of code is that it does not assume that something that you want to be on the system is or is not there. And then after it finds out it is or is not there and validates that, it also does not assume that it is or is not configured the way that you want it to be, nor is it or is it not configured the default state. So if you come along and Apache's already there, you don't want to then assume, oh, it's got the default Apache configuration, so now I just go ahead and do X. I'm going to let this, sometimes you do a regex and you're looking for something that's in the default Apache config, but that machine's already got Apache for some other purpose and that default's no longer there. So idempotency is about really making sure that you don't make assumptions in your code, whether it's about something being there or not. It might be there because someone grabbed a container with it already on it, or it might not be there. Just make sure that when you're resolving it, and this, to me, this has been one of the most valuable skills for me in stepping up to infrastructure as code. When you code this way, your code becomes so much more flexible and usable across different circumstances. Another thing we're doing here is we take an arbitrary, or we're building up our tag list as well as we go along. And then if the commit branch is the default branch, then add the tag latest. So the most typical would be is if my branch is master. But here we're even soft coding it. And you actually helped me improve this code, Jefferson. I had before if my branch equals master, but some companies or teams change their default. And so generally they want that default branch to be marked as latest. So this code is soft coded to say, if the branch that I'm running right now in CI is the default branch of the repository, tag the image latest. And I've seen structures where people have made 2 CI jobs, and that's the only difference. When master, add the latest tag. Otherwise, it's so duplicated code drives my mind nuts. So I decided to do it this way instead.
No, that's good. Parameterize.
Then if additional tag list, you can arbitrarily set this value to have additional tags, and we can add them on. And then we're going to make a formatted tag list, which basically, for some unusual reason, Kaniko uses _ destination. So we build it as if it's Docker, so that this code from this line up can be used for Docker and Docker builds as well. And then here we say formatted tag list. Looks like we have a little, oh, that's you posting the issue. I thought we had some activity on chat there. And then here's where I convert it to Kaniko's format. So we change _ tag to _ destination, because everyone knows it's fun to change parameter names on every utility so that we can have code like this, right? I mean, Jefferson, if you're building this, wouldn't you like make it like, instead of tag, you might as well make it something else, right?
I mean, yeah, I would be arbitrary about it for sure.
Yeah, or you could do it. _ this GUID.
A GUID, oh God.
Make it as inhumane as possible. Here we just echo stuff because we want it in our log, because, you know, stuff goes wrong a lot. So this is leftover code. So this is some pain code. So this code worked fine, and then all of a sudden Google published a container, didn't have the .docker subdirectory by default. So I put this code in to fix it that time. Like, now it's staying in forever, because if that regression works its way back into their code, I don't want to have to deal with it. So interesting, the Kaniko container has all 3 credential helpers for the major clouds, Azure, Amazon, and Google. So then we can do our auth fairly easily. And I think you were ripping that off for a project you were doing too, right? Getting all they're all Go-based helpers.
Yeah, I'm trying to work more around, like, I get now that we've integrated, or GitLab's integrated with Vault. You know, I gotta look at that deeper and dive into it. Because that might be the replacement completely, you know.
Yeah.
But this is reliable as heck, so there's nothing wrong with this either.
Yeah. And then we call Kaniko here. Now, one thing I didn't call out yet is GitLab CI has the ability to do reusable functions. So if you ever remember you first started writing code in the first language you ever did, you didn't know that the idea of functions existed. So you write all this code and you're like, oh, I need to do that again. So you have another big block that's identical. And then eventually you come across, oh, I can create a function and call it wherever I want. And with a declarative language, sometimes that can be challenging, because it's, you know, it's so like just stating exactly what needs to happen in the order it needs to happen. So it's almost like rewinding the history on a computing language to start over with a domain-specific language that's declarative. So right back up here, you may or may not have noticed I had a period in front of my job name, and what that does is it hides it. So when GitLab CI goes through, it reads it, but it doesn't run it. And by hiding it from actually running when encountered, I can now reuse that code. And that's exactly what I do down here. So I say extends that guy up there, and all I really want to change is this environment to something else. And the reason I do that is because I have some variables that will now override. So if I want to push to the GitLab project registry, it turns out I put this here just kind of for the sake of distinguishing from the other one. I don't really need this, because these variables here for logging in are automatically populated for the GitLab registry. And so when it processes this one, I don't even actually have any variables hanging off of this environment name. But when it processes this one, it overrides the built-in GitLab variables with a set that then logs me into Docker. So this is really showing you how to do a Kaniko build inside of GitLab and push to either the internal registry, which is a little bit easier, or to Docker Hub, which is an external registry. If you're going to Amazon ECR, you would just do something very similar.
Yeah, I can show. I have an example project after this one. I can show
Yeah.
of that right. That's using this templates to push. So,
and I'm just going to pop in here and just show you that the CI/CD variables. I have this environment scope push to Docker. Let me see if the hover text is going to come up. Push to Docker Hub. So only when that particular one was run would it go ahead and use these set of variables to override the built-in ones. So that's why, even though this looks like it only does the code once, it's really doing it twice, building the container twice and shoving it to 2 different registries. So that's just a little bit about, using Kaniko on GitLab. I've tested this on our shared runner, which is Docker, and I left the Docker in Docker service off. You can see I didn't have a services entry in here. And I've also tested it on Kubernetes, and it works fine. I don't think it's working on our newest Fargate driver yet. So they've been working to see about getting that working on the Fargate driver, but it does work in the other 2.
Sweet.
And this is all out there for you. So you had some code you want to
I'll
us through?
Yeah. Mine's not as cool or in depth at all.
Dude,
but that's okay.
Just showing your code, man.
I'm just showing stuff. Yes, this is my, I'm trying to build upon this too. So going back to that guided explorations point of view is sharing this off the shelf, ready to build and publish. So here I have templates for build and publish, related for GitLab registry, GCP, ECR, and then ideally I get it to Artifactory and anything else that a said image needs to go to, so that we have it off the shelf. But going back to what you had, so you had those anchors and templates, I guess, if we want to call them templates. We call these anchor templates, whatever, functions, right? You had yours within the same YAML pipeline. I actually have mine separated out into its own file. With GitLab, it doesn't matter. This YAML file could be really in a different project. As long as it's accessible through, I think HTTPS is all you need. You can get to it and use it. And so,
why would I put it in a different project?
So I always look at it as separation of duties, right? So a lot of times, I'm a fat finger. I'll totally mess up code, and so I can easily go in and make a change using an IDE or something like that, and accidentally erase something. So by separating it out, even to its own folder, or you can even lock this thing, but even into its own separate project repo, you could have better or tighter controls around who can access, who can modify. And that way your templates stay safe and they stay clean and without any interruption, other than the ones that you would want, right? Which I'll show in the pipeline.
So even though we have pipeline as code, it doesn't have to be mixed in with the actual code that it's processing. You can keep it separate.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know if that's whatever camp you want to live in, I guess, for adoption. I've seen both ways. I think in our auto DevOps scripts, we have it, maybe we extracted it now, but I think it's in both at the bottom. But either way, I just like it. It gives me a sense of mind, I'm working on this contextually, and there is no switching. And then I'll worry about my pipeline after I do this. So here sort of similar to what you were working on, which is kind of funny, but in a different way. So this is a template for the GitLab container registry, and this is a template for ECR, so Amazon's container registry. And then we have another one for GC. I should just call that GCR, not GCP, but for GCP as well. And going back to that template, so here, right through Docker, I'm creating my image, and you could specify multiple images. So I'm just calling one image that I'm pulling, but because I have it separated, I could probably in my repository put in 4 different kind of Docker files and then call each one depending on the ECR that I'm trying to do, if I want, or even parameterize it in a way, right? So many options there, but here I have this anchor, this template that we've created, and this logs into the registry, right? So that's always a beforehand thing that has to be done. And then I'm taking it and building and publishing it to the container registry, but adding in my own variables, like the Docker build directory, my Docker tag, which is my CI commit SHA. And then in my script, right, I'm navigating to that build directory, and then I am adding my own Docker tag, and then pushing it right back in with the Docker tag I specified. And then here is a retag function, essentially doing the same thing, but as you see, my pull and push tags are one's the SHA, one's the branch that I decided to do.
Would you use this to like promote a container between different container registries if it's like moving to new environments?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the idea, or?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, or at least having the versatility to, right? Because tagging is not hard, but I definitely want it more, like you said, parameterized. I want it more simple. And so, and this, the cool thing about this, like I can just change my variable that I've specified. It doesn't have to be these to be anything I want it to be, but this is just what I chose to do. And then the same thing for ECR. So ECR, right? I'm actually using the GitLab AMI AWS base that we maintain and host. And then there is a little bit of work. So I'm doing a service. So I'm actually calling in the Docker and Docker service on this one. And then here I'm leaving this blank because I didn't want to share anything, but this is where you could put your ECR URL that you have, or you could even put that in a CI/CD variable and then call it here. I really broke out these variables. Like typically I wouldn't do the variable breakdown like this where it's visible, but I was trying to show it as readability. Like these are what you're going to want to parameterize within a variable. It doesn't have to be here out in the open, but something you want to do. And so we do the lock-in to the registry. And then here where I'm like figuring the region. So that's a parameter that you have to put in to your variable. I'm doing a login, right? And basically this is just getting it started to be able to build and publish from there.
Before script, is that a special thing, or is that just something you made up before?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So we actually have, GitLab has before scripts, after scripts, and regular scripts. So this will actually take place before, like say, a job is run. After we, of course, do after it, and then a script would just run in process of the job.
So that's before every job, then, eh?
Yep. Before every job, it's going to do authentication to the registry, so that's not a thing. Because I've had it where if you didn't do that, it's like you dies on authentication. You're like, but why? It's in my script. But you got to worry about where you place it in the script. Where if you do it before script, you don't have to worry about where you place it in a script. If I had an additional script underneath this, like this use case. Yeah. So, so that's what we're doing here. And then on the build and publish, once again, I'm extending this ECR. So I guess I broke my own rule in a weird way, but I'm calling a function that I already created above it. To then use, right?
Inside of another one.
Inside of another one, yeah. It's like
multiple levels deep.
I wonder how many level deeps you could probably go though. That would be kind of interesting to see. Just everything's nested into one function, completely abstracted.
Don't do it on GitLab.com, or you might get in trouble if you like.
Yeah. So I built. I have to show I have to change the name of the repository, but I built where a child parent pipeline that triggers itself. So it runs this pipeline through all these stages, then triggers the same pipeline to run through all these stages with additional child pipelines added at the end of it. So I'll have to show that eventually, but it's kind of funny because you'll watch it go, but we only go 2 layers deep apparently on our child pipeline. So we won't let you go further than 2. But if we left it unlimited,
regress.
Yeah, if it was infinite, it would just keep going. And it's actually fun to watch because it's, but yeah, there's no stopping it.
That on your personal GitLab instance.
Please, on your own runners, not the shared ones. I'm sure they'll be putting something in place to prevent these running things. I'm sure there's timeouts already set. But anyway, sorry, back to what I was doing. So here I'm doing, like I said, I'm extending it. So I'm pulling this function down, setting my tag again. This is pretty arbitrary what you want to do. And doing the build, the pull, right? And then a push to actually the ECR URL with my additional project name and Docker tag. I don't know, like the best practice. I like using the project name and the Docker tag for readability and cleanness, but I'm sure maybe there's another thing that could be used there. I don't know.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just to note, when you push back into your own GitLab, actually, if you highlight packages there, so everyone knows that there's a container registry with every project. We didn't really cover that, did we? that
Yeah,
every
no, we
project
didn't.
on GitLab has its own registry.
Except when this is clearly preliminary and not tested. I was going to move it to guide exploration. So
In that case, it would, if you push to the built-in, there's a variable for the built-in registry. It has
there
the
is.
name, but you're
Yeah.
pushing to an external registry, so you wanted
Yes.
that as part of your path.
So I mean, we have deployments now to ECS and like Fargate and all this other crazy stuff. But it really depends where, I guess, the organization or where you are within your DevOps maturity and adoption. Like sometimes this is all people want. Like I just want an ECR. I already have test definitions in place to take care of my deployments on the cloud side. I just need to get repos there. And if this is easier to do it this way, let's just let's just do it that way.
And in some ways, though, too, like if you're doing cloud scaling, you don't want to be going out of the cloud and incurring bandwidth every time it scales a container.
That's true, right? Yeah.
And then also you want the speed of being inside hopefully the same VPC and same Amazon account. And then also you don't want the drag on your GitLab instance of pulling, because then your GitLab instance is going to have to be, scaling is 24/7 in most organizations, right? So then your GitLab SLA becomes 24/7. So a lot of times that final production push ends up in a closer native registry location to where the scaling happens versus where development happens.
Yeah, and it really depends on, especially like secure workflows, and maybe there's already cloud gates in place that we don't want to negate, right, outside from GitLab in to Amazon. So
yeah,
there's many variables. This is definitely not like the maximum use case. Like this is all you can do. Like this is just one perspective of throwing it to ECR. Like I said, you could send it to ECS, you could send it to Fargate on deployments. We definitely have that capability, but I'm just focusing on ECR right now. So just that entry level piece.
So you have all these functions for every one of them, like a retag, a build and publish, Docker.
Yeah,
Docker.
I should be doing functions of functions with better parameterization. Yeah, I'm sort of breaking many rules here.
No, actually, so I did instructional design for technology topics for a long time. And the more best practice your code gets, if you start condensing, basically making it more concise, the more and more concise it is, pretty soon it's just a big string of parameters. And a human being to learn from that code has to go and look up every parameter in their mind picture. Yeah. So in a way, code that's like the most has all the redundancy eliminated or everything's parameterized, it's hard to learn from because there's just so many parameters. You're like, what's actually happening? So I think this is a good way to learn, is people can see it. Okay, it looks like that for ECR, it looks like that for something.
Yeah, no, that's the goal too. Yeah, because I didn't want it for so abstracted, and that's the worst. Like when you have that, like you're saying, everyone forgets how it works. They just know that it works until it breaks, and then you're diving through many levels of abstraction just to get to the answer that you didn't build this thing. And you didn't want it. You're just, but you still have to fix it. So ideally, breaking it down more cleanly here, you can see those abstractions taking place so that you can sort of take that journey and know where to start. And the same thing with the tree tag. I mean, really kind of rinse and repeat in a lot of way. And I don't know what I was doing here. Docker retag GitLab. So not only am I retagging it from ECR, I'm also retagging it back into GitLab as well. So to make sure that we have, I'm guessing, no configuration drift.
And on that one you had where it's retagging and pushing to a different repo, I know one of the places I worked at before GitLab was massively scaled. And one trick we would do is when you're doing a bunch of dev, you build up all these interim images you may not care about, and you might need to have some garbage collection. So we would have the prod registry be completely separate from all pre-prod and dev, so that if you did cleanup and you accidentally nailed something in a pre-prod dev repo or a registry, it's nowhere near as impactful as if on the registry that everything in prod is pulling from, you accidentally delete an image with some script you didn't write, quite right. So that was one trick that I pass on to customers if they haven't picked up on that yet. Hey, separate prod container registry from all pre-prod at a minimum. So.
Yeah, and I noticed on my AWS AWS ECR URL, I should have put that in this variable path up here to demonstrate that, which I guess I didn't, which is weird. But yeah, But yes, so I'm only adding in my retag like the SHA and the branch. But you're absolutely right. This probably should be environment too, or at least add a tag of environment just in case you have that visibility. So I'm probably going to add that. And then so then GCP, right? So sort of rinse and repeat. GCP is a little bit, like I said, here's all the variables with GCP. I try to capture everything that I could. Like I said, they're blank for on purpose so that you could fit. Those are where you fill in, right? Maybe I should put an input here thing.
You put them in CI/CD variables so they're not in your code instead of putting them here.
Yes, no, that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, I'm only doing this just for the readability sake of it.
Okay, so it's like
you would definitely not put this thing. I would not put my account key or my product like this information in a readable, legible pipeline. Definitely use
that's a good way
variables.
To get thanked by security, man.
Like, yeah, or any
or so one of the cool things about GitLab's security scanning features is it'll find that when that happens in code. Because we scan for secrets to understand heuristically, is this most likely a secret that shouldn't be in here? So that's another way to find out about it.
Yeah. So definitely don't. I may have to add some comments in this. Please do not do this. Please put this in variable management somewhere. But I did do it just for readability. Like because a lot of times I'll read examples online and they're awesome pipelines. They're amazing pipelines. And they don't have a mention of any of the variables they use. They just have, you're like, what goes where? Like, how am I supposed to get this to work? And so I tried to not, repeat that same mistake. But I could be more explicit within it as well. But so here, I'm activating the project that I'm calling. I'm configuring the Docker, and then a lot of rinse and repeat within this script that we have. But what that comes back to, so again, this is just the template. This is not even the workflow pipeline that's actually taking place. It's just the template. So if I go into my pipeline, here I'm including that template. And you can include, they include functionality of the pipeline. It's pretty awesome because you can include like several different pipelines. This could be from a template hosted somewhere else. This could be local. This could be remote. So you could do remote here instead of local and then have an HTTPS address pulling from it. Like there's so many variables in the include and you can just include all the different templates you need and then just call them where you need them, right? So here I'm including that template that I created, and then I'm doing a build, test of it. So it's going to be using that .gitlab Docker build and publish, which we showed. I'm adding it to a stage, and then I'm actually applying rules. So only run this when on success and only when changes have been made to the Docker file or to the tools directory that I have that I have in place in my repository. So the conditional changes are definitely there. So this would only go right if these met these conditions upon success. So really cool functionality.
So you could kind of have a different build in different directories if you needed to.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I'm using one Docker file. But if you said, let's say you had the various Docker files for each particular build or push or publish, you could easily just call it to that particular directory that you're wanting to push from. So nice. Definitely scalable from one to many. And right here, we're extending again. We're doing our deploy using that retag. And then you got your GCR approach to it. And that's where I'm using that. Yeah, CI commit branch is equal to the CI default branch, like you were saying. So only do it if we are committing to that CI default branch. And then much the same. So yeah, it's the versatility and flexibility of that kind of workflow and what you can build and create with abstraction is pretty awesome.
So how do folks get out to find this one? Is there a URL?
You're killing me, Darwin. I'm going to add this to the guided explorations. That's where it needs to live. That's where it needs to go. I haven't quite decided.
URL. It looks like you got it like hidden away on the moon or something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So GitLab has its own internal demo environment that's being created, and I'm all over the place. I have my own GitLab instance as well that I run that's public, that I share public things from, like Ansible playbooks and Terraform playbooks for creation of GitLab and things like that. So I definitely try to contribute and share as much as I can, but that's not always
hey, dude, I just had a smoothie delivered to me.
Oh wow,
that awesome.
What kind of smoothie?
I think it's berries and
Blue.
mint.
Yeah. I had a tostada and a Mountain Dew. Not quite as healthy, but
Almost.
it's my life. What you'll notice is my wife will make, which is awesome. My wife will make me lunch when I'm working. But just realize that at times it is the same thing that my son is eating or chose not to eat, right? Peanut butter and jelly? Oh yeah, for sure.
Every day. Ever since I was 3. So hey,
No,
I've got a question for you, or
yeah.
it's actually one of these kind of challenges. Can you tell us about the day I cratered the network?
The day I cratered the network.
And if you didn't, you're going to be the only person, probably the only IT person on the planet who didn't crater the network.
Oh, man, I'm trying to think. It's not so much that I can't think of one. I'm trying to think of the right one.
Oh, you're trying to pick from many? How many?
Not many. Not many. Something like I've been involved with many, but I would never say that I've only been involved. I've only done one that was my fault. I will say that I've done one that was solely my fault. So I was a consultant of another company, a security consultant for a company, and I was then a managed consultant to another company that they hired from, right? And we were doing all these firewall changes. So I was upgrading an ASA, which is like a Cisco ASA firewall. But we're talking like thousands of policies. So I got clever. I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. I'll do a VLOOKUP and I'll pull up an Excel and I'll just write some scripts that will just overwrite all the right. Being clever, right? That's what
you're automating.
No, exactly. Except you got to make sure that when you double click that stupid little arrow cross thing on a cell, that it actually goes all the way down. And so there were some IPs and policies that, guess what, I just didn't grab. And not like a few, it was like hundreds of ones that I didn't grab. And so when they were deploying, because of course I wasn't there at the time they were deploying, I'm just like, oh yeah, here's the new policies, you're ready to roll. Except I was missing like 200 or so of the policies that were production impacting, right? Because of my stupid VLOOKUP table that I just didn't drag all the way down from. So that was, I think that was the biggest mistake that I've made, which was unintentional. It was, like I said, through means of automation. Now, when I'm automating something, especially in Excel, I make sure that I double check everything that I'm doing because it's burned me more than once. Not so much production environment ready, but on other things, other calculations. Because I used to do like financial analysis, and same mistakes apply, right? But I've been involved in many. I've been in like having to be called and involved with a lot. Either a module going down or dying, and like there's nothing I can do about that because I'm not physical. But or we had like, so here's a good. This is more of an infrastructure Linux one. So we were running Red Hat's Overt. So Overt is like the upstream to Red Hat's virtualization platform for for VMs and things like that. And Overt is, I mean, I guess it makes sense. It has like a control plane ahead, and then it has like everything, the data plane, everything underneath that. And so, but the head was separate from the data plane, which is, so you have an orchestrator and then you have like everything that works. The problem is if the head goes down, right, and it can go down, it's fine, but your current state is exactly where it's at. You can't close, you can't turn off VMs, you can't stop VMs, you can't, like, whatever was down is down, whatever was up is up. There's no controlling it because you can't get in because you have no access to the control plane, period.
Wow.
And so the control head in our data center died. And it just died. Like
single point of failure.
Oh, 100%.
Off.
And we were trying to recover from this. And it was me and two other engineers at a data center for like 4 hours trying to recover the kernel, trying to recover this thing back to a working state, so that because we're running a production environment with like hundreds of VMs with Windows and Linux, all in a state of just, they're there, but we just we can't do anything about it. And without the head, you
that
can't
head,
manage.
what operating system was that running?
That was running. It was running CentOS 7. That's what we're running. Yeah.
You got a blue screen of death on CentOS?
It wasn't. It was like a kernel. Not even a kernel panic. It's like, yeah, it was like a kernel panic, but the whole thing was unrestorable, gone.
Nasty.
And so we had to rebuild just the head part and then connect it to our data plane part, which is like, it's not meant to work that way, period. And so that was like 4 hours of just finally going, this is gone. This is unrecoverable. We're going to have to build up a whole new VM environment instance, start migrating as much as we can, because we have no control. The state is just in the state that it's in forever, permanently. And if something goes down within that state, c'est la vie, it's lost forever, you know? So I've been in, like I said, many occasions where I've been involved with those keep you up at night or have to wake up in the middle of the night situations to go run to a data center to fix something or another. Yeah.
One time that I did that I remember, I was working with jobs that would distribute to every server and desktop in an organization, like 14,000 machines. And I was in charge of the Adobe update, which of course hit every box.
Sure.
And in the system, you had to create these job objects that would have dates of when you're going to target everything. And I built one, and it was a new version of the system. So I was like, okay, I don't know how this new object works. So I had it all set up, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it a different way, but I don't want to destroy this one because I want to remember what I was doing with it, like a kind of a template. So in it had the date field for when it would go live. And I thought, you know what? Well, I guess I didn't think this. I just assumed this. I was like, oh, I bet you if I forward it like a week into the future, it'll be fine because it won't actually be that date when the clock hits that date. So I forwarded it, and I don't know if this was at the end of the day. It was some point at which, not too long, like within a half hour or something, I went somewhere else or to a meeting or something. And sure enough, I get a call. Are you doing something in the distribution system? Because it's currently cratering the entire network as it tries to send out an update job to everything in the entire organization. So and that was my bad story. So
that's it. That's all though. That's the one. Is that the only one that you constructed or you've been a part of, I guess?
Yeah, that was the one where it was my hands on the keyboard
that made destruction was done.
Made the assumption that followed through to the fingers that got into the code that blew up the world. So.
That's what, so I did a lot with Ansible as well, and that's like those mistakes, like that's why. So before I was using Ansible with GitLab to do that automation of deployment. So we could have some sort of centralization, right? Without having to like stand up our own box, and we could use containers to do it. And like just the imperative, I guess, flow of Ansible is destructive in itself. Like if you don't get, like I could easily write a job that overwrites a previous job because of the imperative qualities of it. So I'm sure I've made mistakes within that many times without knowing, but now everything's moving to declarative, so it's less of a worry, maybe. Cool. As long as you check it once.
Are you declaring that fact?
Yes.
Well, hey, we've enjoyed coding with everyone today, and we'll give this another whirl in a couple weeks. Thank you, Jefferson, for sharing.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Code and your experiences. If you have code or questions about GitLab CI, that's what we're going to be focusing on for the foreseeable little feature here with Mission Impossible Code. So missionimpossiblecode.io, it's where I put up all my useless ideas and code. So if you too want to create your network, you can go up there, or we'll publish some of Jefferson's code and you can create your network or your whatever with our code. But we'll see everyone next week, and we will do some more coding.
All right, it's been fun, Dory. Thank you so much.
Yeah, talk later, man.
Bye.